The Iran war is just not about the Straits of Hormuz. What happens there may affect the Straits of Malacca. Here is something interesting. 60 years ago, a crisis that began in Southeast Asia, the Konfrontasi, unexpectedly migrated to the Middle East. Eventually, for Malaysia at least, the resolution involved the Middle East as well. Today, that pattern is reversing. A crisis that has begun in the Middle East could migrate to Southeast Asia and shape the events here. If that is true, it means that the waters of the Straits of Malacca are no longer insulated. So what are the lessons of the Konfrontasi that can be applied today? The Konfrontasi was not just a military confrontation. It was a test of whether Malaysia could survive as a state. And one of its key vulnerabilities was economic. You see, Malaysia depended on an open trading system, particularly the Strait of Malacca. That route was not closed, but it did not need be. Uncertainty alone was enough to create pressure. Malaysia survived, not because it was stronger, but because it was clearer. It was clear about what it was defending, and it was clear that it had very few means to do so, and it was clear that friends and diplomacy was important. From that experience, Malaysia developed a set of instincts that forms Malaysia's foreign policy, which are still in practice today. The most important thing for Malaysia was international legitimacy. It needed international support for the federation, and therefore it needed to be part of the existing order in which the dominant powers were the Western ones. But it also realized along the way that aligning itself with the dominant powers was not a useful way of securing legitimacy for itself. Lessons learned along the way indicated that non-alignment would be the best. And the third thing that Malaysia learned was that it was important to support the Arab countries in their Middle East issue. This allowed Malaysia to draw on the support of these Arab countries whenever the need arose. These were not abstract ideas. They shaped Malaysia's foreign policy for the last 6 decades or so. But today, the very same instincts that helped Malaysia survive the Konfrontasi are being tested in a different environment, in a different way. I've discussed the Konfrontasi in several videos. From the beginning, different aspects. I also have a video on Iran's role. I think the context is important and it's probably useful for you to watch them. The links to those videos are in the description below. During Konfrontasi, Pakistan also broke diplomatic ties with Malaysia. But even after the tensions with Indonesia and the Philippines were resolved, that relationship remained unsettled. It was a final loose end, and it was resolved quietly through Paris, through Bangkok, and ultimately through Iran. In 1966, Iran was part of the solution. Today, Iran is part of the crisis. Its actions in the Straits of Hormuz are not just disrupting flows. They are beginning to reshape how oil trade is conducted. There are already indications from public reports that some vessels have had to secure passage under specific arrangements. In some cases, this had reportedly involved the payment of a fee in yuan. Some vessels were exempted. Malaysia, for example, is one of them, and there are others as well. But the broader point is this: access is no longer neutral. And this is where it becomes significant. If the war on Iran goes on for much longer, these ad hoc arrangements may not remain temporary. They may begin to settle into a pattern. And once that happens, the implications go beyond shipping. Because when trade routes become uncertain, companies do not wait for governments. They look for cheaper and more reliable ways to settle transactions. That includes how they pay. So even limited experimentation, whether in alternative currencies or non-dollar settlement, can, over time, begin to normalize. And if that process takes hold, it may start to influence how energy trade itself is conducted. You see where this is going. Even if a tiny fraction of the oil trade moves outside the dollar system and through the yuan, for example, it strengthens Iran. But importantly, it also strengthens China's position. And this shift will not go unnoticed. If major powers conclude that China is gaining strategic advantage from disruptions in the Hormuz, they may look for ways to apply pressure elsewhere. And the most obvious pressure point is not in the Middle East. It is in Southeast Asia, the Strait of Malacca. Remember, China depends on this particular waterway for 80% of its energy supply, but the United States has a strategic presence in the region. India also has a presence in the western approaches to the Strait of Malacca, and Malaysia sits right in the middle of all of it. Here is where history produces one of its more striking reversals. Indonesia, the adversary in 1963, today is a close partner and a friend in managing that vital maritime environment in Southeast Asia. But Iran, the very country that helped close the final chapter in 1966, today is the same one that is part of the environment that is shaping the next crisis. There are 5 lessons that matter today. The 4th is the most important. You may want to stay on and watch till the end. Lesson number 1. Konfrontasi began in Southeast Asia, but its resolution ran through the Middle East, Paris, Bangkok, and Iran. Crises do not stay contained. What begins in the Strait of Hormuz can reach the Strait of Malacca. The freedom of navigation matters. Freedom of navigation in the Strait of Malacca must be defended and reiterated by all the states. Lesson 3. Assume a long crisis. Konfrontasi did not end quickly. It evolved. This crisis in the Middle East may follow a similar path. What looks temporary may become enduring. We must plan accordingly. I have a video there where I explain why I think this Iran war may be longer than we expect. You may want to watch it. Lesson 4. Be prepared for change. Disruptions in the Straits of Hormuz may reshape oil trade. Payment systems may change. New channels may emerge. Although the dollar system still dominates for now, but if the structure begins to shift, we must be prepared to change. Not out of preference, but out of necessity. Lesson 5. A new kind of non-alignment. When we talk about non-alignment, we usually refer to not aligning with the major powers. But in this Iran war, a new type of non-alignment might be necessary. For countries like Malaysia, being with the Arab position is important, but we cannot ignore Iran either. So it is important to be friendly with both, but not aligned with either. A balance has to be struck. This, I think, is vital in this crisis. The crisis today is different, but the structure is the same. In the final analysis, the challenge here is to navigate a system that is undergoing change, a system that is no longer stable. You may have heard that history repeats itself. I do not like cliches, but as a diplomat with over 33 years of experience, it's remarkable how it actually repeats itself. And history instructs and tells us sometimes on how to move forward. And I think this instance is where we can apply the lessons of the Konfrontasi. If you liked this video, kindly hit the like button and subscribe. And as I mentioned to you earlier, there are links to the previous videos on Konfrontasi. I would strongly urge you to watch them. Thank you very much.